You should stop saving your 20% down payment right now. And if you're a first-time buyer, particularly in my market of Surrey and the Fraser Valley, you should buy with as little as 5% down as soon as you possibly can. Listen, I know your parents told you for decades that you have to save a down payment of 20% before you buy, so that you can avoid paying that dreaded CMHC insurance. Well, it's time to tell those boomers to beat it, because in today's market, that's bad advice. The real way to get ahead in today's real estate market is to get in as soon as you possibly can, because the rewards that used to go to those people who saved and built up the credit, well, they are a thing of the past. And the only thing worse than taking your parents' advice of saving up a 20% down payment is not taking my advice to subscribe to this channel right now so you can stay up to date on the real estate market here in Canada.
Now that's solid advice.
Thank you. And taking my advice will get more than just your toe in the door. In fact, it will allow you to get your entire foot in the door. So if you are a first-time buyer thinking of getting into the marketplace, click the like button for the YouTube algorithm and let's get into the details. See, today I was speaking with my personal mortgage broker at Citywide Mortgage Services. Oh, don't worry. There's a link down below in the description so you can start your application today. And as one does with mortgage brokers, we were discussing interest rates. And he filled me in on his best available rates on both 3 and 5 year money in multiple different scenarios. And while I know it's hard to believe, but in fact, the less you put down, the better deal you get. And yeah, I know that doesn't make any sense, or at least it shouldn't. And if you tell that to anyone over the age of 45 years old, their head will probably explode. But it's the truth in today's market, so let me break it down for you. You see, assuming a buyer was buying a property under $1 million and they were planning to amortize their mortgage over 25 years, the best rates available as of the day we spoke were 5.74% on a 3-year term and 5.39% on a 5-year term. Now, personally, that would have me already locking in for the longer money, but I do understand that many people right now are looking for shorter term mortgages as they think rates are set to come down in the coming years.
I don't know if I'd make that bet right now.
And given the same loan on the same property, if the buyer wanted to lower their payments just by a little bit and amortize out to 30 years, well, then they would have to pay a little bit more for that privilege at 5.89% over 3 years or 5.54% over 5. That makes sense, right? The bank makes it a little bit easier for you to make your monthly payments and bring them down with a longer payment plan. As a result, you pay a little bit higher rate for that privilege. But what your parents didn't let you know when they told you to save up that 20% down payment is that if you bought a home right now with, say, 5, 10, or 15% down, the interest rate you receive from the bank can actually get better by quite a bit. Now, since you're using CMHC, that 30-year amortization period completely disappears. It's not an option. And you are only given the opportunity to finance over a 25-year period. But given those guidelines, the best current rate available was 5.39% on a 3-year and as low as 5.04% on a 5-year fixed rate. So by putting less money down, making you a riskier buyer to actually lend money to, you have the ability to save 0.35% per year on your mortgage payments or your interest rate. Yeah, it's true. All you good little savers out there are about to be rewarded with a higher interest rate. You're welcome. And this is all because you, Mr. or Mrs. 20% down, are in fact a higher risk to the bank because you did not pay for mortgage default insurance. So if you are a buyer putting down 5% and you default, the bank eventually gets made whole by the government's corporation called CMHC, Canada's Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And when you put down 20%, in theory, you are the riskiest loan that there is. Because if you default and your property happens to devalue after all the selling costs are out of the way by more than 20%, well, then the bank is the one on the hook. And therefore, that is why they charge you a higher interest rate initially. Or at least, that's what they want you to think when they charge you more. But if you are 20% down and you're still buying a property under $1 million, the real reason you might be paying a higher rate is that your lending institution is likely just buying the insurance anyway and charging it back to you in the form of a higher rate. Because if you have CMHC insurance paid for by you, that fee that goes onto the balance of your mortgage, and you pay interest on it every single month, and the bank has no liability, well, it's a pretty sweet deal for them all the way around. But if you don't have insurance, but you do technically still qualify for it, the bank could take out that policy anyway. And sure, they don't then tack it on top of the amount that you owe, but they still pay for that policy with your now higher payments. And again, the bank is then relieved of their liability when you default. I mean, I guess if you default. And now I do know what you're going to say next.
But Steve, if I save up, then my payments will be lower, and I will pay less to the bank for sure, and I will save the CMHC fee.
And yes, of course, there is an argument to that, because the payment ends up being a whole lot higher on a 25-year CMHC insured mortgage with a lower down payment. But let me counter that with another factor, and that is, how long is it going to take for you to save up from your 5 or 10% down payment to get all the way up to 20% down? Let's say it's, I don't know, maybe 5 years. And the average growth rate of real estate here in my market is about 6% per year. Meaning that instead of saving the $100,000 20% down payment on a $500,000 condo, that condo could be worth as much as $669,000 if the market follows historical trends. And once you have saved your $100,000 down, you actually need to save an additional $33,000 or so to reach the new 20% down payment of $133,000. So there is a chance you can get into this market right now with as little as $25,000 down. Also avoiding transfer taxes as a first-time homebuyer. Or you can wait to figure out a way to save up another $108,000 and miss out on the potential lift in this scenario of a possible $169,000 gain, with the obvious disclaimer that those returns are for sure not guaranteed. Of course, if you are living at home with mom and dad, sure, you can save a lot of rent. But let's say you're paying rent, and well, we know that rents are crazy high. And if you are lucky enough to have low rent and you're saving well, hopefully you don't end up in the middle of a rent eviction or your landlord decides to sell the unit, because while rents went up as much as 20% in some areas in just the last 12 months, and they for sure have gone up across Canada, almost everywhere, 20% since the beginning of the pandemic, meaning that it will again become even harder to save towards your reward of a higher interest rate. But there is good news, and that is, as of shooting this video, it looks like the market is about to slow down, and all you have to do to find out why is watch this video. Then subscribe, click the like button to celebrate not having to listen to your parents anymore, because you know, that might actually be the best part of becoming a homeowner.